All right. Thanks, Becca. All right. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about the difference between technical skills and soft skills. And we'll dig into a little bit of research and some ways that we can start working on some of those skills. Here we go. Hey, Becca, it's just letting me write on your screen. I made a little heart, but it's not letting me move the screen. So can you go to the next slide?
You're in draw mode.
Okay.
Now you're in mouse mode.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So hard skills versus soft skills. So hard skills are our technical skills, right? So these are things like, we owned a CPA firm for a while. So those would be things like accounting, tax. These are things like marketing, human resources, right? There are specific laws and skills that you develop over time. Soft skills are things like self-awareness, how to handle conflict, decision-making, problem solving. Emotional intelligence is kind of like the bigger umbrella over all of our soft skills, but certainly a part of it. Okay. So let's just start with this. So soft skills make up what percentage of overall career success? So you can go ahead and put your answer in the chat. Yay, you are correct. It is 85 to 90% of our overall career success. So it is a game changer. So one thing that I love looking at this graph because it just reminds us of how important it is that we can get all the training and all the technical development out there known to man. But if we really want to be successful in what we do, we've got to work on these soft skills. And I can say that for us, that is why we exist in the first place, right? So we are doing it live all the time. So in situations like today, we're doing sort of a small lecture style lesson for you, but that's why we're opening up the last hour of what we're doing so that we can actually grow and develop and learn how to ask the right questions if we're dealing with a situation, or learn how to navigate even getting to the root of a problem instead of figuring out what is, an answer to a surface level issue. Okay. So let us move on. All right. So today we're going to spend all our time in the land of self-awareness. We are actually also going to do a little bit of self-awareness next month and behavior styles next month. But today we're going to talk about self-awareness. So this is like my favorite lesson of all time. So if you've ever taken any of our courses before, you're always going to see this in your face every single time. So we judge ourselves by our intentions and others judge us by our actions. Okay. And so what that means is when we're communicating with people, there's kind of this continuum that goes on, right? So the first place that we can be is this place of judgment right here. So if we're not careful and we go backwards, judgment could turn into resentment, right? So judgment is a place that it's just human nature. You see a situation and you make a judgment call, right? So this first situation could be something like, I look over and I see a man and a woman and they're arguing and he seems aggressive. So immediately I've got alert, right? Well, if I take a minute and maybe I'm fearful that she is in danger. So I may take a step closer to actually be able to understand what's happening. And it could be, you never know, like the dog got loose and something silly and he's aggressive, not because he's mad at her, but because he's panicking because he can't find his dog. Right. So that's a whole other situation. Then this woman could be in grave danger. And if I didn't take a step forward to kind of try to understand the situation, right, I could have caused a problem that never existed in the first place. So then we move to a place of respect. So if I take this same scenario and I then said, is there anything I could do to help in the situation, it sounds like you might be missing your dog. Right. So immediately we're like engaging in something, or I could be respectful enough to just stay out of the situation because it's none of my business. And maybe I don't even have the time to, address it. And respectfully, I'm just going to walk away. But if I choose to engage, I'm gaining some respect there. Then I move to a place of valuing. Okay. So this is all communication. So if I have respectfully offered some help, to find their dog. Now we are moving into a place where they're valuing me in the relationship, and they're saying, oh, wow, yeah, 3 of us looking for this dog is going to be a whole lot better than 1 of us or 2 of us looking for this dog. And so when you can get, I'm using something that doesn't necessarily apply in the workplace, but I want to give you the most simple examples of how to earn trust with people. Because if we don't ever get to pass judgment, right? So in the workplace, you may hear things like, oh my gosh, can you believe her? Or, oh my gosh, this client is such a pain in the, you know what I mean? So that's one. We'll talk about rules in a little bit. But that's one of the things that is so important to us. We don't badmouth anybody, whether it's a customer, a vendor, a coworker, whoever it is. There's no place for that if you actually want to have a trusting relationship with somebody. So if you're in a situation, I know all of you have some people that are you're responsible for. So in that situation, it would sound something like, say Sally comes up to me and she says, Kristine, I'm so frustrated with Becca. Like, she just has an attitude all the time, and I don't know what her problem is, right? I don't know who Sally is, but she's talking about Becca, right? So anyway, so Becca, my first reaction to Sally is going to be, okay, Sally, so what did Becca say when you told her? Right? Because I do not want to get involved in this situation because Becca trusts me and Sally trusts me enough to tell me, but I've got to redirect Sally so she stays in a place of trust with Becca. Because the second that we break that relationship by entering ourselves somewhere we don't belong, we can't undo that. And if we do, it takes months to undo something that took years to build. So we got to be really, really careful with these relationships. Okay, let's do another poll. On average, how much of an impact does the tone of our voice have on someone's perception of our communication? Okay. So the answer for tone of voice is actually, here, I'll get in here. Tone of voice is 38%. So the reason this is this guy's rule, right? I just like it because it's easy for us to be able to teach our people, right? So if I have somebody whose body language stinks, right? So if I'm on this call with you and I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to teach you something about soft skills today anyway, right? So that's my body language. My body language is telling you I'm not really paying attention to what's going on here and I'm not fully engaged and paying attention to you. If I were to say, you guys are going to have such a great time today with us, or if I said, you guys are going to have such a great time with us today, right? So you can see just my tone of voice impacted, but my body language had a bigger impact on the overall conversation. So tone of voice, 38%, body language, 55% of the overall communication. The key here that I want you taking away from today is that spoken words are only 7%. So I know that I'm just laughing because I can think of a lot of examples where this has happened, right? So how many have received an email that they were completely put off about the email that came to them? Totally ruined your whole day, right? Yeah, me too. Right? Same with text. The difference is if I'm in person with you and I have an issue, I'm more likely to try to understand, like, hey, Jess, and we've probably even had this conversation before. Hey, something's off today. Is everything okay? And then it might be, oh, I just have a bunch of stuff going on later. So I'm having a hard time paying attention. Oh, okay, let's dig into that for a minute. let's try and get it out of your head so we can focus here. Or it might be, I have an issue. I have to pick up my son early today and blah, blah, blah. I want to go and take care of that. So it's like, okay, well, then maybe we need to reschedule. So it's like, unless I ask questions and I seek to understand what she's dealing with or talking about, then I'm never, ever going to get to the root cause of what is making my perception of her off. Now, we got to watch this sometimes, because if you're like me, and you love people, because I know everybody on this call that is on here today finds people fascinating, okay, to some degree. So we have to watch ourselves a little bit, because sometimes we overanalyze people and their responses. And, oh, now that I know this about body language, I'm going to like scan everybody's body language, which, I do it all the time. So every twitch, I'm like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? How does that apply to this situation? Right. So as long as we just monitor that and we're careful with it, we stay in a good place. So just ask a lot of good questions. And I always like to say, because people, especially now, we've got a lot of different generations in the workplace. And so many of them prefer texting, they prefer email, and they believe that having this phone call, there was just a really good article, which if I can find it, I'll send it to you. But it talked about, they didn't like the way that some of the older generations would always have to pick up the phone and always need to explain everything. It's such a waste of time. And the truth is it might be, right? And it might not be. And so there's a way that we can start to make sure that we're not just in spoken word land when it is something that isn't, hey, I just wanted to let everybody know the thing we already talked about actually happened, and here's where it's going to be. You can text that, you can email that. It's not really a big deal. But when you're in a situation where you're like, I have to deliver this information and it's going to a large group of people, and I just want to make sure I'm heard really well. Well, we have so many tools out there today that we could record a video embedded in an email, have the written email, because it depends on who you're talking to, right? But we could have a little short video, 30-second clip that explains it, and they see us, especially if you're communicating with a large group, that they see us. Or if it's a text that I might be sending to Becca where maybe we miscommunicated about something, but I want to make sure she knows that I'm not upset with her or she's not upset with me, then I may just do like a voice memo and send it in a text message or something like that. So at the very least, she can hear the tone of my voice, or at the very least, if I make a video and put it in an email, that they can see my body language. Because if we are just leaving it up to that 7%, that means we are allowing for 93% of our overall communication to be subjective to whatever mood the person is in that's receiving our email or text. Okay. Questions? Any questions right now? Okay. Anything that stood out to you that you maybe didn't know?
I was surprised to see that the tone of the voice is such a lower percentage than I would have thought, just being a mother. And I'm always watchful of the tone with my son, but I realize he probably is, taking into account my body language and all of it. It's a good reminder, right? It's like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
I think about intent versus impact for sure. It was a good reminder, definitely, just to be mindful of all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Good. Jess, Caleb, anything to add before we move on?
No, I was going to say I pretty much agree with the same thing. That percentage was something I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was you just bringing acknowledgement to the different generations in the workplace, because that is our team. And that really hit home. I took some notes on that one.
Good. Maybe even sharing that information with them would be helpful. And constantly reminding, like, just remember that, sometimes what seems to be the most efficient way actually causes less efficiency, because there's all this snowball effect of feelings that are hurt and work that doesn't get done because now we're preoccupied with something that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. I liked
Cool.
your quote that you had on your slide.
Thanks, Jess.